Hi, I'm Alex Newman. I'm author of Crimes of the Educators and a teacher at Freedom Project Academy. And I'm with Dr. Ray Moore, who is the founder of the Exodus Mandate and most recently did Escaping Common Core, Setting Our Children Free. And he also helped work on indoctrination. And then here we have Let My Children Go, which is a book. And we're happy to be able to talk to you guys here at the conference. Thanks very much to Don Pridemore for inviting us to make a quick little film. And so I want to ask you, Ray, what are some of the problems that you see with the current school system?
Well, the first thing I would say that it's improperly constituted, and we think the government shouldn't be running schools. We need to try to get back to free market, private, Christian, and homeschooling as a pattern or a normal way of educating our children at the K through 12 level. The indoctrination movie, which I did help with, it was done primarily by Colin Gunn and Joaquin Fernandez, traces a history of state-sponsored public education. Shows it began with the Unitarians and Socialists in New England in the 1840s, and it sort of took over and engulfed the mostly private Christian school system that was dominant in America, and by the turn of the 20th century it had pretty well taken over. So we would like to get back to that model. It's a biblical model. It's the original American model, and so as a result, we think a lot of our efforts to try to fix the government school system is wasted. It can't be done because it's improperly constituted. It's like you don't see conservatives today talking about trying to fix Obamacare. They want to repeal it. So we really would like to see gradually the state system repealed or abolished. I know that sounds pretty grandiose, but we think it is possible, certainly over the next decade.
Cool. And so what are some of the big problems? I mean, what's happening to the children in the government schools?
Well, I'm glad you asked a follow-up question, because I really wanted to get to the root of it, which is the very existence of state education. The fact that the government is running the schools enables them to do all these terrible things they're doing. And of course, in your book, Crimes of Educators, you show how they have dumbed down the children in the area of reading. And Sam Blumenfeld spent his whole life trying to expose that and bring phonics back in. The indoctrination movie shows how they're bringing sexuality into the schools, homosexuality, without the doctrine of the teaching of covenant marriage, which is what we've always believed, at least in the churches. So a number of things. Of course, they have forced evolutionism now in the schools. Socialism, we've talked about climate change or global warming. That's just engulfing the children now, and they're being just indoctrinated at breakneck speed. And we just don't have enough resources to combat it, and we're not successful when we try. So we need to look at alternative models. I homeschool my children, started in the late 70s. They're, of course, all adults now, and they're conservative. They're Christians, and they're very successful in their professions and in their work, and they were never indoctrinated. But there's only 4% of the children being homeschooled, and another 10% in private or Christian schools. So we've got to grow this movement if we're going to be successful in defeating the left.
Okay, very good. And you've seen what's happened to education. Has it been getting worse over the years, and in what ways? And what is kind of the logical end point of this if we don't put a stop to it?
It is getting worse. It seems like the harder the conservative reformers work to fix it, the worse it gets. They're not really having very much success. The end game is a total taking away of our freedom and our liberty. And they have the children. We look at the recent election, and 80% of all the millennials supported Hillary Clinton or one of the third-party candidates in the recent election. I'm 73, and in our generation, we're more conservative and traditional. But the next generation is coming along, and they're going to be replacing us in a few years. I hope I can live another 15 or 20 years, but no one knows for sure. But the next generation is very much left. They've bought into the globalist agenda completely. They bought into global warming. They believe in evolution. And what's happening is that they're much more hostile to our way of life than ever before. So the demographics are going to shift greatly, and we probably have just a few years that we can affect the change that needs to be done. And if we all hitch one horse, as I say, to the Exodus mandate wagon and pull, no matter what your agenda is, if you're a Second Amendment advocate or trying to fight against evolution, you're strong for creation, we all need to pull together and be trying to pull the children out and get them into the safe sanctuary of Christian schools or homeschooling. If we don't do that, very soon the power of the globalists will be so great that they will oppress the minority, the homeschoolers, the Christian schoolers, and take away our freedom, and we're going to be under great stress. But if we grow the movement, we could perhaps defeat them in the long run. But we've got to give up this idea that we can fix the public schools and move completely and solely into private, free market, and Christian homeschooling as a way of life.
Okay, and we just recently had a presidential election. I'm sure everybody in the conference has heard about this, and probably most people thought of it as good news. What do you see in the cards vis-a-vis education and the bigger picture with where the society is going? Is this going to have a big impact? Is it a reprieve? Are we going to turn things around, or is it going to be more of the same?
I think we've gained a reprieve. I'm in favor of what happened Tuesday, November 8th, but we need to be vigilant and careful. We need to double down in what we're doing. I think the tendency will be, if we're not careful, to relax and say that Donald Trump is going to fix everything. We've got to remember that that Department of Education is completely riddled and staffed with humanists and liberals and leftists and globalists, and I don't know how they're going to deal with it. But President Reagan ran against the Department of Education in 1980 and said he was going to disband it or dismantle it. And then the first thing he did was put Terrell Bell as Secretary of Education, and he was the guy who had come up with the original plan under Carter. So Donald Trump has talked about cutting back on the Department of Education, dismantling it, and we just hope he'll follow through. But we have to be very vigilant that he doesn't put people in there who are going to carry forth the Common Core globalist agenda, which is what the department is just riddled with people like that under Obama. So we need to be very vigilant. We need to double down in our agenda and not assume that he is going to fix everything. We have 4 years where we may not be oppressed and arrested and put in harm's way, and it gives us a moment of freedom. But if we don't get serious about this, and they continue on with their agenda, we're going to lose our freedoms and our liberty completely. And that's the long-term goal of the left, of the globalists. And they've seen the education of children as the mechanism by which they can accomplish all these things. We're going to see global warming and evolution and homosexuality that's being riddled in our schools now, and that will just continue, and it will accelerate. And the only way we can defeat it is get kids out of harm's way into Christian schools or homeschooling.
Excellent. And where can people find out more about the stuff that you're doing? Is there a website? Where should people go to learn more?
Well, I'd like them to go to the website for my new movie. It's been out a year, called Escaping Common Core, Setting Our Children Free. And the webpage for that is escapecommoncore.com. And we use the Common Core issue. As I said, it's just a small part, but we're using that since it was so prominent in the recent presidential debates as an issue to drive people out of the system and cause them to leave. And of course, the other movie, which is now about 5 years old, indoctrination.com, and this movie is still very useful and very helpful. And we believe about several million people have viewed that movie, and that was done by Colin Gunn and Joaquin Fernandez, and I had a secondary role as executive producer which means we put up some of the funds and we were sponsors for that movie, and it really sort of carries the message of Exodus Mandate. And then our webpage for our ministry is exodusmandate.org, exodusmandate.org.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Alex, you didn't say anything about you.
No, I was. Let's.